Ahoy! Joe Buddy Hambone here. And if you are in the Brooklyn area on July 9th, which is just a few days after this episode airs, Alex Murray, our editor, who was one of the cast members of the 20-Sided Tavern, he is going to be doing a show called Tales from the Tavern with some of the other cast members from the 20-Sided Tavern. It is going to be an absolute blast. It's at the Crown Hill Theater in Brooklyn, July 9th, 2025. So if you're listening to this in the future, you missed out on a great show. I'm actually going to be at this event vending for Ham and Egg Publishing. I got 3-2-1 RPG books. I got some Zombie Brain Eater books. Some other RPG notables should be in attendance as well. And you can use the code Ham and Eggs. That's HAMANDEGGS for 20% off tickets. That's Ham and Eggs for 20% off tickets. I can't tell you enough about the wonderful experience I had at the 20-Sided Tavern. This one is going to be a little more rowdy and wild because Daddy Hasbro ain't looking. So get your tickets now for Tales from the Tavern, July 9th, 2025 at the Brooklyn, New York Crown Hill Theater. Use the code Ham and Eggs for 20% off tickets.
This is the Vintage RPG Podcast, your source for the best in classic and contemporary RPGs. With your hosts, Hambone and Stu.
Welcome to the Vintage RPG Podcast, coming at you again from the clubhouse, hidden somewhere in the swamps of New Jersey. I'm John Hambone McGuire, and with me, as always, is the founder and publisher of Unwinnable. No joke today, folks, because we have some absolute killers on the show today as guests. We got Ben and James here to talk about Land of Eem, beginner's RPG for kids, and the Underlands expansions. It's on Kickstarter now. By the time you hear this episode, there's going to be 10 days left for you to get on this. So Ben and James, how you doing today?
We're doing great. Pretty good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So before we dive into this fully, tell our listeners a little bit who may not know about Land of Eem, what it's all about.
So Land of Eem is it's a whimsical role-playing game that celebrates exploration and creativity and high adventure, and it's set in the world of our book series Rickety Stitch and the Gelatinous Goo and Dungeoneer Adventures. And Rickety Stitch is a graphic novel series originally from Random House, but now we're working with Exalted Funeral for this really cool box set. And it's about a skeleton bard who goes on an epic quest to discover who he was when he was alive. And it's a colorful adventure. It's got tones of Adventure Time, and we always talk about it being a little bit like The Lord of the Rings meets The Muppets. And we decided we wanted to build a game world that represented the kind of flavor of adventure that Ben and I love to have on our own.
When I first encountered it, I think Matt called it from Exalted Funeral called it Lord of the Rings meets The Muppets, and my brain sort of lit up, and I feel like there's a lot of sort of more kid-friendly, squishy RPGs out there. But this one, when I got the first Kickstarter and it showed, I had seen it at PAX in December, and it's massive. But when I got it in my house, it took me about 15 seconds before I was like, well, this is my kid's first RPG. I could tell. And he's 7 now. And he immediately... those books constantly disappear because he's just stealing them to do stuff with them.
It's awesome. That is awesome.
Because of that, I'm just so in love with Land of Eem. Was it just a natural thing? Because I feel like the graphic novels are a little the Rickety Stitch stuff is a little older, and the Dungeoneer Adventures, which I'm reading with my son, are a little younger. How did you approach it to just be so kind of approachable for that range of age? I think there's a lot of pretty big range of what kids can handle between 5 and 14. But I think that Land of Eem kind of works well within that range. How'd you work with that?
That's a great question. It comes from a place of Ben and I. For those of you that don't know, Ben and I grew up together. We've been buddies since we were in the 2nd grade.
Oh, hell
nice.
Yeah. Love
all right.
that.
That's the best projects come out of stuff like that.
And in that time, we grew up reading comics and playing, 2nd edition Dungeons and Dragons and
this is the way.
And all that. But we also were huge fans of things like The Hobbit, which are kid books that are timeless. Essentially, they cover that you can enjoy it as a kid, but you can also enjoy it as an adult. I mean, it's still my favorite book of all time. And we loved the idea of being able to create a fantasy world that had rounded corners on it. So would be, feel like an 80s cartoon, but still have all of the emotional depth and the tonal shift that you might find in The Lord of the Rings, where cute little hobbits from the Shire defeat a giant sorcerer god by throwing a magical ring into a volcano.
Right.
And so the being able to have the breadth of range of tone and something like that is something that Ben and I really enjoy doing. And the Land of Eem was a natural direction for us because that's the sort of storytelling that we fell in love with when we were growing up.
Yeah, and we're always working on new series within the world. So we've got Rickety Stitch, Dungeon Adventures. We're writing something right now that's probably somewhere in between those two. Like James said, we consider Land of Eem to be able to encompass a breadth of different tones and age levels. And so we really view it as an all ages thing.
Do you think that the art naturally kind of primes that?
I think that's probably the most polarizing part of it, is people's initial reaction to the art, which was the case for Rickety Stitch as well. And that just comes down to our aesthetic and
our influences.
Maybe more specifically my aesthetic as an artist. Like, that's just my wheelhouse when I draw. And the artists that we're employing to help us out with the RPG, they're kind of basing that on my art. So it's like there's no way around that, really.
Well, I mean, there's also the aspect of it that, like, while the artwork, I would say, is definitely whimsical in a lot of ways, very much, in line with the 80s style of cartooning that, you spoke about a few minutes ago. But then you look at a thing like The Hobbit, or you look at a lot of these older cartoons, and it turns on a dime. And it goes from, hey, this is whimsical and fun, to dangerous real quick. I mean, like, you look at things like even movies like The Neverending Story, which emotionally scarred everyone. And I know I'm just triggering half our audience right now if you're over a certain age. But, like, I really love that conceptually approach to fantasy because, it doesn't have to be murder hobo all the time. It just... You could explore, you could have fun, you could have like these high fantasy thoughts, and then you can go brawl in the gutter when you need to. And I think that's a cool balance to walk between. And speaking of creativity, one of the things that stood out to me about this was a D12 system that encourages collaborative storytelling. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the D12 was a conscious choice. For two reasons. And the first one was entirely emotional. It's because it's the best dice.
It is. It absolutely
D12s are the
is.
best dice.
It really is.
Underused. Totally underused.
One of my favorite tattoos is a D12 because the shape is so perfect.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because the shape is so perfect, it rolls perfectly.
It rolls perfectly.
It does.
And nothing quite feels like rolling a 12.
It's true.
And the sound it makes when it hits and bounces.
Y'all are my best friends now.
Like we're talking about a muscle car here.
Talking about a muscle car is hilarious.
Go on.
Sorry. That's hilarious. So the first reason emotional, and then the next reason is mechanical. It's because it's swingier than 2d6s, and we were inspired by Powered by the Apocalypse. Because there was grades of success and failure. And we like the idea of using that mechanic because it always pushes the story forward. And when you're playing a game where you want the PCs to be engaged with the GM and to develop that story together, like in a Land of Eem, there's a lot of abilities that classes have that actually shape the world around you. And the way that a lot of people play with the sandbox specifically is very emergent because many GMs are not prepping as much when they play Land of Eem because there's so much material in the sandbox setting that they're all discovering things simultaneously as they're happening. And
it's designed not to prep like everything. We don't expect you to read a 450-page book. And so our goal was to lay out the book in a way that you could just use it as a reference book your players are exploring, they come upon a location, you can pretty quickly look at the location, see the NPCs, they all have illustrations and quick traits and motivations, and see like what's going on in the town, get a gist of it, and read some quest hooks.
And see where that gameplay takes you when you succeed with a twist or fail with a plus.
My inner dropout thanks you very much for that game design aspect.
Yeah, we kind of designed it for ourselves because we don't prep ourselves. There's like no time these days. So
Yeah.
having easy access to reference material that doesn't mean that it doesn't have to have depth, because the Mucklands sandbox definitely has an enormous amount of depth and 450 pages. It's just accessible.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
And it is huge. I've barely cracked the surface of it. You have all of this material across three sort of platforms: the graphic novel, the novels, and the RPG, and none of them really resort to traditional sort of fantasy role-playing tropes. Like it's really much more exploration focused in a way that I don't think anybody has really successfully done. It always kind of falls back to combat. And I just feel I'm interested in how you've approached that. Especially I've been really impressed with the way that Dungeoneer Adventure books have just like they just don't do the things that I expect them to do, and I mean that in like the most positive way. Like you could see these stories just veering into like solving everything through combat. There's no real combat solutions. It's always like the power of friendship, to put it like in its most simplistic terms. And you just navigate that really well. So I'm interested in how you've approached that.
Well, thank you, first of
Yeah.
all.
Thank you. High praise.
Yeah, that was one of our big design goals with the game, to reflect our stories. You mentioned Dungeon Adventures and also Rickety Stitch. Rickety Stitch cannot fight. He's like, there's one sequence where he fights, but otherwise he's running away or he's solving problems by, convincing an ogre not to eat him by playing a beautiful song. So we wanted the game to reflect that. And so conflicts are broken up into 4 phases where the players can parlay first. That's like the first phase. Then you can improvise some other combat action, like say you want to, cut the rope bridge or run for a contested item or do something else creative. Third phase is run. And the last phase of combat is, conflict is combat. So whoever wants to fight is always going last in that round. And what that does is encourage creative problem solving and ways out of a conflict, which we thought was super important to just reflect, the way we play, but also our stories.
I'll also add that one of the inspirations for me is to use non-combat to generate heroic moments that get remembered forever.
Mm. Yeah.
And if you look like Star Wars or like The Princess Bride or Lord of the Rings, like the hobbits didn't fight Sauron. They defeated him with a cunning plan. Like Luke Skywalker fights Darth Vader for a little bit, but he convinces him to join the light side again. And like in The Princess Bride, Wesley doesn't defeat Prince Humperdinck in an epic knockout, duel. He tricks him by making him think he can duel. And so like there's all these moments in movies and stories where the heroics are actually just the completion of a very cunning plan that is built up throughout the story, or the ingeniousness of the characters. And you can put that into games. You can support that kind of gameplay. In the Land of Eem, you very likely cannot defeat a lich in hand-to-hand combat. It's designed in an imbalanced way so that you have to be creative to defeat the lich. And that kind of gameplay always made me excited. It's like all the moments from our entire lives where we played various different games. It's those moments that we remember and that they're the most exciting and heroic.
I love that. I'm working on something like a West Marches hex crawl, and so I haven't really been in too deep into the Land of Eem stuff, just because I'm so I keep encountering these hex crawl things, and I'm just like, everybody's doing it so well. Why am I doing it? I just love it. I love it all the way through. You just nail the tone of the whole thing.
Yeah.
that I've experienced so far. And then you put out, and it's huge, and you're already putting out a new thing. Tell me about this kid's adventure. He's going to be 9 when it comes out, and I think that's the perfect age for Jeremiah to get into this thing.
Oh yeah.
So tell me about the kids starter RPG.
Well, we wrote Dungeoneer Adventures, and we felt like it was a perfect setting for kids to jump into, and it was an opportunity to sort of streamline some of Land of Eames mechanics that maybe kids would find a little more difficult, such as the making custom dice. We got custom dice instead of all these skills that you got to remember with modifiers. So now you just roll it and see it on site. We cut out travel, so the length of the session can be 30 minutes to an hour, which we thought was super important. Working with the kids, shortened attention span.
Right. Anyone that's played a game with kids knows that they have shorter attention spans, and you got to kind of keep them on the rails a little bit in order to, have them experience the adventure itself.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you do a brilliant job with the dice mechanic for this, because I'm looking at it right now, and folks, you can see all of this on the Kickstarter. It is pretty cool. So you have a skill dice, a talent dice, and a combat dice. The combat dice obviously is going to be self-explanatory, but you go from, when you roll the skill and talent dice, A plus, awesome with a plus. A is awesome. A minus, awesome with the minus. So you still pass the check, but there's a twist and a drawback. Failure with a plus, but still it's not like getting an F in school. And then the banana peel, I love. You failed, something silly, unexpected, or chaotic happens, and I think that's a really beautiful way to translate it to much younger players who and no shade to any of our listeners, but I've definitely heard a story or two. It's like, yeah, I broke the kid in with the red box, and you're like, whoa. This feels a lot better because it's still, even when you fail, it shows that there's something encouraging that could happen to keep the kids engaged and not like, well, now my brain's just going to shut off because I feel bad with an adventure like this.
Yeah,
and there are certainly some kids that can play Land of Eem at a younger age, and it works great.
People at our Discord talk about that all the time, like running games for their kids, and just some of them use all the rules, others like swap out some stuff or take out like crafting or something like that that's really crunchy or crunchier. The Dungeoneer Beginners game really came from a place where Ben and I recently became fathers. Like, Ben's got an almost 3-year-old, I have an almost 2-year-old.
Congratulations.
And
so they're not play testing yet.
They're not play testing yet. No, that was with other kids. But we wanted to make a game that we felt would be ideal for playing with our own kids. And like Ben said, setting it in the world of Dungeoneer Adventures, there's this book series that ties into it that you don't need to read, but it can help get kids excited, because who doesn't want their kid to be reading, right? Mm-hmm. And then as far as this other thing, as far as the Underlands expansion for the core game, it was an obvious fit for a double expansion, because all of Dungeoneer Adventures takes place in the Underlands. And the way that we've designed it is so that if you're a GM at home with kids and you blow through all the material that's in the Dungeoneer Adventures box set, you can not only play the Underlands with the core game, but it's also got all that stuff that you can port pretty easily over to the kid game. So you have infinite material, essentially, that you can play with the kids and run them through. And if they start to graduate from the rules, they can jump right into the Land of Eem core game. So a lot of thought went into it.
What I think is pretty cool is that if you're playing the Land of Eem core game, you can use the Dungeoneer Adventures sandbox as material for your game if you want to run a school campaign or something like that, because all of that, there's 16 adventures and there's several maps and all these NPCs to use as a campaign setting.
Right. And the Land of Eem sandbox settings are not like rules crunchy. They're designed so that you can play it with any mechanics that you want. You can it's just story material, essentially, with a little bit of guidance on some mechanics if you're playing the core game. So that was another consideration. We wanted to make it all just accessible and a tremendous amount of this type of resource for GMs so that running games for any age would be easy.
And is the Underlands campaign set about comparable to the size of the Mucklands?
It's 2 regions smaller because the
Okay.
Mucklands is a monster.
How old is the Land of Eem in the meta sets? Like, how long have you been like playing in and developing the land? I'm assuming that you're doing that before the book series even started.
Yeah, well, it all started with Rickety Stitch, and we created Rickety Stitch in 2002. So it's been a lot of years of
In some years.
slowly world building. Rickety Stitch actually came out in 2017 as a book, but yeah, we're always world building around that concept, and it just like started to sprawl.
Yeah.
Were you doing it in service to the comic, or were you doing it like was it coming out in your games?
That's a good question.
A little bit of both.
Yeah, a little bit of both. It definitely started with the comic, but Ben and I, being huge fans of TTRPGs, always knew we wanted to make something. We wanted to make some kind of a game, and in fact, the original name for the Land of Eem was the Rickety Stitch RPG for like years.
Ah, there you go.
But it also became a really useful tool for us as authors because in Rickety Stitch, he travels through the Mucklands in a montage. It's like in 2 pages, it's over. He goes through that, and then he goes to a whole other region that we haven't even put out yet for the game. And there's lots of places like that. The Land of Eem is actually pretty enormous, and we absolutely intend to make more sandboxes to pay off many of the different locations and conflicts that are mentioned throughout Rickety Stitch or Dungeon Adventures or even the sandboxes that have been released. But it's become this tremendous tool for us to flesh out all of these elements that we had ideas about that didn't make it into the character stories of Rickety Stitch or Dungeoneer Adventures. And now we've got this enormous kind of living and breathing world that we can set, character stories into. And that's actually what Ben and I are working on all the time outside of the game.
It seems like role-playing games make people into competent. It like gives you a base competency in storytelling that can be applied to both visual art and writing, and it's always interesting to see how people sort of use those skills. And this is such like a perfect example of how those things. I'm going to use a business word, synergize.
Ooh, yeah.
It's gross. I know everybody uses that word, but it's a real, English sometimes, it's the right word for the moment. They do. They all come together and they show you different aspects of this thing that's massive, and it gives you different on-ramps into it to explore in different ways. And I just think it all comes together really well. And I know it does because my kid is so enthusiastic about it. He like adores it.
That's amazing to hear.
I can't stress it. He takes the fold out map that came in the original box set, like the cardstock map, and he like goes to his neighbor's house with it, and then like they sit under a tree and like they just sit there and make up stories for the stuff that's on the map. And like
So cool.
That's maybe my favorite thing I've ever heard. That like delights me. I can't even express.
And like that was yeah. So he was like 7.5 when that happened.
That's why James and I enjoy being authors and writers and artists. Just we know what that's like to have something spark our imagination, some story or cartoon or whatever. That's just what we're trying to chase. So that's like amazing to hear.
Yeah, and I've always known. I mean, like it's just laying around my house. I have so much of this crap, So like he's eventually going to get into it in some degree. And it was really, I just didn't think it was going to be like that, and it was going to be so cool. And yeah, man, Land of Eem is like my favorite RPG right now because it's my kid's favorite RPG.
High praise, thank you.
And one of the cool things I think that you guys got going on here is that, and I've run 10 or 11 crowdfunding campaigns. I've backed well over 100 crowdfunding campaigns. This is one of the most like robustly explained and supported crowdfunding campaigns I've ever seen, because like in addition to like doing our show, which we're obviously stoked to have you, you have a full community calendar.
Oh man, that community calendar is great.
It's so great, right? Like it's something I've not seen before, because everyone is like, oh, I got how am I going to promote? Whose show am I going to go on? Well, you could check out the podcast. You can go to the Discord and do Discord hangouts. You can go on the YouTube where you're doing like streams with artists. You're doing July 2nd sandwiches of history Underlands. Like got my interest. You're doing actual plays. You're doing hangouts. And like, it's rare to see a creator be able to just explain baseline what their project is, but you're giving people who, and again, it's hard to get people to come up off some money, especially nowadays, but you're giving people the opportunity to really understand what they're getting themselves into and to feel good about the money that they're spending, knowing that they're supporting something that's so cool. And like they know what it's like. You watch a trailer to a movie and you're like, I could go either way. But this, you're putting the money where the mouth is, and you're literally putting it out every single day since launch, with the exception of the 4th of July, on YouTube, on Discord, on the podcast. So I just have to say kudos to you for doing that, because that's pretty amazing and it's something no one else does.
Well, thank you. I mean,
yes, thank you. And I gotta shout out, the Shadow Dark campaign, because that's where we got the idea of a community calendar, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah.
And then James and I were like, what if we did something every single day on the calendar?
Yeah, Ben and I have this weird bug where it's like, first of all, Ben and I believe that supporting a TTRPG is critical to building a community and having it be enjoyable for the long term.
Yeah.
There's a lot of games that I've liked that just, they sort of end. It's just like, that's that, but there's not much that follows it. And it was obvious for us because the Land of Eem is so sprawling and enormous, and Ben and I have so many plans in the works for new book series from big publishers that help support the Land of Eem continually, that we wanted to, we said, hey, we can do more than just a couple of sandboxes. We could do like 10 sandboxes. We got plenty of material, and this is going to be a blast to work on. Let's do this for 20 years. What do you say? And we high-fived and did it.
That's awesome. I mean, like, I've been publishing books for like 5 years, and I can attest to the importance of, like, if you make up a game or you make up you got to just keep supporting it. You got to keep putting out books, like, because, if you really like something, like, you don't want that miniseries to end. You want more story. You want more adventures. You want more world to play in. And boy, howdy, you've given us a lot of world.
Yeah, is there like a world's record for like the widthiest RPG box? Because I have a lot of RPGs and I don't think any take up quite the shelf space as the original Land of Eem.
Our internal goal is to beat Encyclopedia Britannica.
I'm betting on you guys.
You got some stiff competition from Goodman. I feel like they make very thick books as well.
Yeah,
I love it. I love how it's so dangerous coming off the shelf.
I definitely think that you guys can take the world book, but Britannica's, you're gonna have to start eating more protein, do your calisthenics with your fingers.
Gotta dig deep. Gotta dig deep.
Eat your vitamins, drink lots of water, make sure you don't skip leg day. But I believe in you. I think you guys really got what it takes to be the champ.
Well, one of our actual internal goals was to make something so large that it couldn't be ignored.
Yeah. You can't ignore the Land of Eem.
It was a real attention getter at PAX in December. Like, it was just based on how huge it was sitting there. I think it was just the one sample copy. I don't think they had it for sale yet. And it was just massive. It was the biggest thing in the booth.
Really cool looking.
There was a moment there where I was standing at the booth and I got to witness someone who didn't know what the Land of Eem was see it, and she stopped briefly and was like, "What is this?" And I just laughed. I was like, "That's the Land of Eem."
I feel like this is a good place to wrap up the episode, because we could honestly probably talk to you for hours, and we would definitely want to have you back. But before you go, I got to say, coming back to the D12 thing, because I just can't I can't let it go. Do you ever
should you?
I know. Have you all ever seen Crocodile Dundee?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
There's a place in the sandbox that's based on, Crocodile Dundee.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Amazing.
there's probably half a dozen Crocodile Dundee jokes in Mucklands.
Well, the reason I say this is because I've always equated, the great sword damage, like where it's 2d6, to like Crocodile Dundee, and like, why would you roll 2d6s when you could roll a d12? Because it's like, that's not a knife. This is a knife. And like that's the way I feel about the d12. Like, the like, yeah, that's a knife, but this is a knife. So yeah.
Yeah.
D12 forever, everybody. D12 for life.
D12 forever.
So this feels like a pretty good time to let people know where they can find you on the internet. It won't be hard to find because especially this month, you guys are everywhere. Where can people find your work on the internet outside of this awesome Kickstarter y'all are running?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've got the Land of Eem campaign on Kickstarter, but it's also easy to find us. You can go to landofeem.com, and if you haven't checked out Land of Eem, you can download the Quick Start Guide for free and get a sense of the world. It's got pre-gen characters and even an adventure that you can play.
You can also download a preview of the Mucklands sandbox right now on the campaign.
Yep, which is huge. Mucklands is, like we talked about, was pretty significant in size, so there's a lot of material there, and you can find us on Discord. But I have to take a second to thank everybody that supported the campaign so far, because we came out of the gate and people are so enthusiastic about the Land of Eem. It's really been awe-inspiring for Ben and I, and everybody in our Discord community is super supportive, and any new players, the new GMs that come in, they just get so much support. Everybody's really nice and engaging and helpful. And I gotta say, like, the Land of Eem community is just like the best ever.
Isn't that the best feeling? Like, it's just like, oh wow, everybody who likes my thing is genuinely nice and supportive.
Yeah, it's an awesome and rewarding feeling to know that the community is growing so fast with so many wonderful people
and taking the lessons of the setting and the stories to heart. Like, it's it's great.
And also, like, when you have a good Discord community, and we speak about this often, we call our Discord community an oasis from the world, because it is nice to be able to like just sit somewhere and just like have a chat about the stuff that you love and the things that you're passionate about together, and to be excited about that, because there is, without specific mention, there's a lot of toxic fandoms out there, a lot of like toxicness and a lot of hobbies and whatever, but like when you got that group that just hits right, and it grows and it becomes more and more than just the reason why they showed up in the first place, man, that's a golden feeling. So I'm glad you guys are able to chase that.
Yeah, really well said.
So this is friggin' awesome. Land of Eem, beginner's RPG for kids plus Underlands expansion. When you hear this episode, folks, you got 10 days left to back it on Kickstarter. It's fully funded, so whatever you put in, you're going to get it back when it's time to deliver this thing. But I cannot express enough. I mean, you've heard Stu gush about it. Like, I've been a little more quiet today. Stu's been in the driver's seat, but this is the real deal. This is the kind of game that you're going to want to play with your friends. This is the kind of game that you're going to want to play with your kids. And if you're like a cool uncle like me, this is the kind of game that you're going to want to play with the kids that your friends entrust you to hang out with, so they can like go on dinner dates and stuff. So Land of Eem, beginner's RPG for kids plus Underlands expansion. Ben, James, thanks so much for sharing your time with us today, and best of luck on the next 10 days.
Well, thank you for having us. We
really
loved
appreciate it.
Super fun.
Yeah, no, this is great. Thank you.
So this has been another amazing episode of the Vintage RPG Podcast. Stu, where can the people find you on the internet?
They can find me at vintagerpg.com. I can guarantee that the Land of Eem box set, the original one with the Mucklands, will be like a week's worth of posts in 2026, because I work really far ahead. But
yeah,
it'll be there. It'll be there early in next year.
And it's something that we tell all the creators. It's not that we're not excited about your thing, but Stu is generally a full year ahead, if not more, depending on the time of year that you end up on the episode promoting your cool stuff.
It's my psychosis. It has nothing to do with you.
Yeah, he's just diligent. Like what did you say when we hit the when you talked about it recently? You've written over like 1 million words for the posts.
The posts weigh in at like 700,000 words, and then with the book, I've written 1 million words about role playing games, which is like
That's amazing.
That's insane.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that makes you like a black belt.
Yeah.
Or at least your 2 pointer fingers that you type with.
And I'm still kind of an idiot, so it's really it's a real accomplishment.
No.
Well, speaking of time and the length of time, this episode, when it finally does air, you're going to get it on the 7th of July, which is also the 8th anniversary of the Vintage RPG podcast.
Oh, well, there you go.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, that is amazing.
And it's so weird because like 8 years has just kind of flown by. And I do like the anniversary gift that it would be this year, Stu. It's linen and lace, so we could like give each other a nice doily that we could roll dice on a table and not have to feel so bad about the dice hitting the surface.
That's but it would have to be you can't do a doily because then the die will get stuck in the nooks and crannies.
You're right.
It's be like rolling on an English muffin.
Unless it's a D12, then it just like lessens that thunder crack.
That's true.
Just gonna say it'd be less satisfying sound wise, but the table will thank you later for it. But
a D12 shaped doily. I mean, that's some good merch right there.
Yeah.
Somewhere on Etsy, folks. So we just want to say from the bottom of our hearts, thank you for 8 great years. It has been one of the great pleasures in my life to be able to have an audience that just listens to me like yap about some bullshit for like almost a decade, and to be so embraced, for Stu and I to be so embraced and appreciated, because as much as we appreciate you, we know you appreciate us, and we're constantly trying to give that love back. So thank you for listening from the bottom of our hearts, and here's to many more years. Curious to see what the 9th anniversary gift is like. You can find me across the internet at John McGuire RPG. I am very active right now because I'm promoting my own backer kit campaign, Days of Future Fairhaven. It's an adventure that's compatible with the Weird Heroes of Public Access tabletop RPG. Become a public access TV host fighting the evils of AI in the early 2000s, trying to save your town from a 24-hour news cycle. It's on BackerKit right now. Links wherever I am on the internet, you will find links, because I will not shut up about it, at least until like the 21st of this month when the campaign wraps up. If you like the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Your reviews really do help other listeners to find us. If you really like the show, why not become a patron? Patreon.com/vintagerpg. We have a behind-the-scenes look at the stuff that me and Stu work on for as little as $1 a month, which is pretty neat. You get the episodes early, like on a Friday or a Saturday. At the $5 tier, I run a game every month, and I usually run games that we talk about on the show. So you know what I'm going to run this month? I'm going to run Land of Eem. So if you're at the $5 tier, get in on a Land of Eem game. I'm doing it. At the $10 tier, Stu's legendary and extremely deadly West Marches campaign. You get my tier and Stu's tier together at $10. And we've got that beautiful Discord community we'd love to be a part of. Patreon.com/vintagerpg. So for Stu Horvath, I'm John Hambone McGuire. May the dice always roll in your favor. Take care. Thanks for listening. The Vintage RPG Podcast is a ham-fisted production. Music by Dead Go West. Art by Schaefer Brown. Edited by R. Alex Murray. Check us out at vintagerpg.com.